All right, everyone, welcome. Here we are. We're in class 3 of a beginner series. And so I will do a little recap, but before we do that, I truly believe one of the most advanced postures we ask any yogi to do, whether you're a beginner or an advanced yogi, is to find a good seat. And what in the hell does that mean? Find a good seat. It's a phrase you hear yoga teachers say all the time, but with little instruction. I highly encourage blankets. I have 2. They're folded in half and then in half, and they're stacked. And this is, as a seasoned teacher, this is some height that I find a lot of people actually need. And then we want to sit as far back on it as possible. I've heard instructions to sit forward, and if you're super mobile, that works. If you're not super mobile, sit back. So we're going to focus today. We've covered foundation and general form, beginner's mind. We've covered how to pull energy into and create stability. And today we'll continue with setting the foundation in the form of active feet and steady shins. And then we'll add in some refinement principles where the thighs get to move back and wide. And then we learn how to maintain that expansion so that our lower back has curve. I'd like you to just take a seat wherever you are and flex your feet, spread your toes. Some of your toes aren't going to spread. It could be a rhetorical request. Spread your toes and then cross your shins without letting your ankles collapse. So if your feet were flat on the floor and your knees went wide, try to keep the shin, ankle, and foot in a straight line. Cross your shins. You can use your hands, pick up your seat a couple times, and try to let the inner thighs get a little more hollow. So we've created active feet. By not letting the ankle bones collapse to the floor, we've created steady shins. So flex your ankles, draw your hands to your heart, and then just allow the energy that's inside your hips to sink down into the blankets or the floor. And so we've done our best to find a good seat in a short period of time. You're in a pose called Sukhasana. It translates to the pose of ease. So you want to, if you need to sit up next to a wall or in a chair, finding ease within the physical form and the yoga practice is going to be the forever invitation. So let's see, when your hands come into the heart center, you can bow in and try to soften your mind a little bit by noticing your breath. And when you notice your breath, you have noticed your physical body. And your physical body is a beautiful container for the busy mind. You can focus on how the breath comes in through your nose and all the way down into the expansion and release of your belly. So we give the mind something to watch. And the practice of yoga is really, in so many ways, about learning to honor the gift of being in your body, learning to listen to it. We're not here to subjugate, overstretch, overpower. We're here to strengthen and lengthen, to breathe and receive, and to do our best to align our body in such a way that the energy can move through it with greater clarity. When we have greater clarity of energy streaming through our physical body, we tend to feel better emotionally, mentally. So set a little intention that we're going to stay simple and sweet today. but active and clear. And your feet have probably gotten a little tired here. They're holding the energy, even as you try to relax your mind. So herein lies the deep invitation of the yoga practice. Can we create a sense of ease within action? And we'll take one deep, long breath in through your nose. Let that out through your mouth. And let that follow by two more. And if you choose, you'll join me with an Om that comes with your next exhale. Oh. And release your hands and come up to a standing pose. Your blanket stack can move to the side. And in refresher or active feet, steady shins, we'll take your one block between your 2 feet and the other block between, actually, let's put it between your shins right now. Bring your hands to your upper thighs, bend your knees, and then look down and line up your feet so that it's called parallel or mountain pose foot. And that's we line up the inside edge of your big toe with the inside edge of your inner ankle. And then see if you can squeeze the big toes in towards the block, even as you lift your toes up. Lift all 10 toes. All 10 toes, lift, lift, lift. This is going to create a very active 4 corners of your foot. So feel the big toe. From your inner knee, squeeze the block. Yeah. And now see if you can keep the big toe pulling in, but spread to your baby toe. See if you can keep your shins pulling in, but spread from baby toe to outer ankle. And now your legs are pretty turned on. From the exercise we did in the class before, you can even use your hands as a way to as if you're lifting the earth up into you. And you're going to imagine you could pull both feet up off the floor at the same time and pull your legs straight upright. And then find the ease in your upper body. Shake out your shoulders. So we're holding a tremendous power of awareness through the active feet, the steady shins, and a lot of muscle action. And then reach up, touch the sky. Try to keep the legs that strong, active feet, shins in as you fold forward, and we'll bring your hands just below the knees, bending the knees. Push your sit bones back and pull your heart forward. This is a very modified form of a forward fold, but what it's done is it's kept you so in your game. It's so steady with the legs, but it's also now created an action we're going to call thighs back. So the hip crease right here, you can bring your hands up to it, right where your legs join your hips, and gently push the hip crease back towards your buttocks as you pull your heart forward. Now, take one hand and find the very base of your spine. It's called your tailbone. And gently pull your tailbone down towards the backs of your heels, and you're going to feel your pelvic floor and everything get even more active. This is a lot of work. So now pull the tailbone down, just lift your heart, keep your shins in, your thighs back. And hopefully we found a really solid mountain pose. Our very first practice, we talked about how this is the pose that all poses grow from. Reach up, touch the sky, hands to your heart. Inhale, reach up. Active feet, steady shins. Exhale, hands down. Inhale, reach up, active feet, steady shins. Keep your thighs moving back as if you had your hands at the hip crease. And hands down. Active feet, steady shins, thighs back. Now make your tailbone stronger and a little longer without pushing your hip bones forward. And hands down. And this is a lot of isometric energy to hold, and this is one way to strengthen. Now, let the arms go really wide. Let your heart move way forward and try to keep energy pushing down through the big toes and hands to your shins. Let your elbows go wide and let your mind bow to your heart to your body. Take the block that's inside your shins and put it out in front of you and hold it with your hands as you lengthen your spine. And exhale, fold in any amount. Keep the feet active, shins steady. Hug the imaginary block now. Keep your thighs back, and as you root your tailbone, lengthen your spine. From here, place one hand at a time to your hip and lift up. So if you're not a beginner, if this is not new to you, this seems very remedial, and that's good. As in time, this is going to make so much sense that you can do all the wild and crazy poses. So you'll move your 2 blocks to the head of your mat. Step up to the head of your mat and place yourself well. So you can remember the block between your feet and hug into that energy of the block and see how that pulls your shins to the midline. Now I'll show you here. There's a bone way up here. You might find it in your leg. It's called the greater trochanter. And when you push your upper thigh bones back, you want that bone to line up with your outer ankle. That's how far back, without losing the energy of the big toes. Active feet, pull the shins towards the block. Now move that upper thigh bone way back. That's going to create a curve in your lumbar spine that is healthy and necessary. From there, though, you need some strength. So keep the thighs moving back and pull your tailbone down until your lower belly feels strong. Active feet, steady shins, thighs back. As your tailbone roots, lift up. Keep the actions of your legs and let the hip creases fold, hands to your blocks. Inhale, side bodies long. And this time we'll take your fingers to the ground. If you have to bend your knees, that's great. Step one foot and then the other to all fours. Imagine you have a block as you tuck your toes. Imagine you have a block between your ankles. Yeah, and squeeze your feet in. Squeeze your shins in. Now from there, I'm going to push down through your hands, lift your knees up an inch. Squeeze your shins in, push your feet down, your balls of your feet down. Now move the hips back, but keep the knees bent. That's it. You got it. This is called downward facing dog. It's one of the most popular and probably overused poses in yoga. Give yourself a breath here. Lift your sit bones, your buttocks. Bend your knees, lift your sit bones. Bend your knees, lift your sit bones. That's it. Now to a count of 5, bring your knees down. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Tuck your toes. Press your hips back to your heels. It's called child's pose. And a deep breath. Inhale forward, all fours. Tuck your toes. Squeeze your shins in. Lift your knees. Press the hips up and back. You got it. Deep breath in. Full breath out. Count of 5, knees to the floor. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Point your toes. Push your hips back. Inhale up. Tuck your toes. Now we'll talk about what your hands are doing. Your hands are like feet, your arms are like legs. And we talked about this briefly. Make a little peace sign with your hands, your fingers. And then spread the thumb. So then curl your middle finger in. So you've got a little J now. We went from peace to celebrating Jaya. And you want to put the index finger and thumb down on your sticky mat and then extend the other 4 fingers. Okay. So the index finger and thumb are very important. Your peace fingers are going to turn slightly out towards the front corners of your sticky mat. The creases of your wrist, you want them to be straight across from thumb to pinky finger side of your hand. So don't turn the hands too far in or too far out. Then make your hands active, like your big toes push down through the index finger and your thumb. Can you drag that energy back until you feel some power pulling up the underside of your arm? And that's going to connect you into the shoulder blades. Maintain that and walk your knees back. Tuck your toes. Without bending your elbows, can you push the floor away and then soften your arm bones back into your shoulder socket? So try this. I call it flossing your shoulder blades. Up and down. Try not to bend your elbows. Now keep the shoulder blades on your back. Tuck your toes. From your shoulder blades, push your hands down and forward to lift your hips. There you go. So when we use the upper back, the lower back gets some help. Now push the hands forward and down and make those hip creases move way back like a forward fold. Deep breath in. Full breath out. This is downward facing dog. Now you should feel like you're actually working harder in your upper back now than you are your legs. Take your gaze and look down to your feet. Energetically squeeze your ankles and your shins in like you had those 2 blocks. Now try to move the upper inner thighs further back. And deep breath. Count of 5, inhale to the knees. Point your toes, reach back, child's pose. Inhale all 4s. Really find the index finger and thumb. Pull your arm bones into your shoulder socket, tuck your toes. Lift your knees. And from the heart, push the earth away. Hands move forward and down. Hips move back and up. Keep the knees generously bent. Now see if you can make the baby toes lighter. Push more through the big toe edge of your foot. Good. Shift your gaze forward and walk your feet. As far as you get until you run out of room, and then bring your hands up to where we started. Hands to the upper thighs, bend your knees. Deep, deep breath. Let's not get overwhelmed by all of the things we're asking ourselves to do. And we'll just come back up and find that mountain pose and see what settled. So there's going to be words that you hear that make sense, words that make no sense, actions that your body doesn't understand yet, but what has made sense. So just feel your active feet, some steady shins. Think about thighs back and the tailbone reaching gently downward, not so far forward that you push your hips forward. Yeah. Active feet, steady shins, thighs back, tailbone down. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale, reach up. Now, if you need those 2 blocks down there because you can't keep the curve of your lower back, then you reach for those when you go to forward fold. Yeah? If you can go all the way to the floor, great. Please step right foot back, lunge. And here's a place where I know most people, even seasoned practitioners, actually are served by blocks. Deep breath in, step forward with your exhale. Push down through the active right foot and step left foot back. Now find active feet. So feel your toes. Squeeze the inner ankles towards the midline of your mat. Maintain that. Now see if you can lift your upper left thigh bone away from the floor a little more. You got that. Keep that. Now try to pull the right buttocks down and under. Push through right foot with exhale, step forward. Find your mountain pose legs. And if you need hands to hips in order to keep that lumbar curve, that's the smart choice. Or if you want to reverse swan dive, go up. Keeping thighs back, lengthen the tailbone, hold right wrist, and start with your feet. Ease up in the upper body by bending your elbows a little bit, squeezing the shins in, thighs back, root the tailbone, and then lean. Keeping legs strong and firm. The upper body soft and receptive. Switch sides. Inhale, lift up. Bow forward, strong legs the whole way. Step one foot back, plant both hands, step the other foot back. This is a pose called plank pose, and a lot of people need to come to their knee. Deep breath in. Bend your knees towards your wrists. From the shoulder blades, push the floor down and forward and lift your hips up and back. Keep your knees bent. Good job. Inhale, plank. Please take your knees to the floor. And then we're going to do shoulder blades on your back, elbows go wide. Take your chest down between your wrists. And then pull the belly forward to a cow tilt. Look up. And then cat tilt. Let the heart move forward, elbows go wide and bend. Let the heart move down halfway between your wrists and then all the way up to cow. And exhale, cat. And then chin and chest move down and forward all the way to cow. Yep. And up and back, cat. It's a great way to build strength. And what I want you to focus on is how easy it is to unplug your index finger and thumb. So keep coming back to rooting that part of your hand, especially when you notice it wants to get light. And here we bring awareness to action and commitment to staying healthy in our body. Nice. Child's pose. Slowly bring your hands by your knees. Find your two blankets or one blanket or no blanket, but wherever you're going, now that we know how to find a good seat, take a good seat. Try active feet, shins in. Now this time, you'll take thighs back and wide one at a time. Pull your tailbone down towards the blanket and then let that firmness in your core hold you so you can relax your arms. So we did a very basic beginner version of some really key poses that build and thread together. And then the next practice, we will put it all together. We'll do more of a full sun salutation. We're going to add in some standing poses and learn how to take the active feet, steady shins, thighs back, tailbone root into asymmetrical shapes, where we're asking the legs to do two different things at the same time. So there's always more to grow, more to build, more to understand. Can you drop in for a moment and let your steady resolve to just show up and let your body be your guide? Let the wisdom of the practice create a deeper connection of appreciation to your physical body. And by taking time to slow down and refine the actions of simple staple poses, you've got something that you can really truly blossom in time. And that's the key phrase right there, in time. So you draw your hands to your heart. Honor how far you've come, whether it's your third practice or your 3000th. Settle in. The steady actions of how the legs hold you, the strength of your core and your awareness. So yoga is as much a mental practice as anything. We become stronger and more contained. And in that strength, we become more fluid. And to that we offer an Om. The sound of Om is really to remind us that we're connected to this big wise energy that we're trying to line up with. And deep breath in. And deep breath out. Inhale. Namaste. Thank you. Thanks for your practice. Thanks for your dedication. So much respect and love for you. And any questions? I got a few minutes. We can answer them as it relates to anything you've learned in the 3 classes prior, anything that's going on in your body. I might be able to answer other kinds of questions.
So one of my challenges, Tiffany, is with the notion of thighs back. It takes my coccyx back with it. So I am always, that's constant work, is trying to figure out how to get that thigh bone back while not having the coccyx go with it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And here's a tip. When you think of the bones as separate,
Yeah.
so your femur bones are separate than your pelvic bones, and your pelvic bones are actually separate from your sacrum and your tailbone. And so we start to learn how to isolate and think of that. It is true. If you keep the shins steady and you move the thighs back, the coccyx does go with it by nature. The gift here, though, is that we can then, with the action of the steady shins, that's a key thing. We have to keep the shins steady. And then the upper inner thighs, the muscles have to learn how to get stronger than the butt muscles. And so we want to keep, and that's why having a block here is helpful, keeping the thighs back. And then if you think of drawing the tailbone towards the block, and then letting the muscles right above your pubic bone lift a little bit. So it's like you're zipping up tight pants.
Right.
that is going to give you the action that you need. Because otherwise, the two, the femur bones and the tailbone start to act more like they're one unit, right?
Mhm.
And so we want to be able to keep shin steady, inner groin strong, and the bones back. And then we use other muscles. There's muscles that connect from your tailbone to your pubic bone, and it's creates a little hammock in the pelvic floor for women and men. And we can think of drawing the tailbone closer to the pubic bone, and it
Okay,
creates this little tone in the
right,
pelvic
right.
floor, and then it will also help people get stronger here.
Awesome.
Yeah,
So the psoas, we're kind of trying to tap the psoas muscle in there.
the psoas muscle.
I mean, what muscles are we trying to tap internal to the pelvis?
Internal to the pelvis. It's just let's keep it simple and call it levator ani.
Okay.
It's a pelvic floor muscle.
Okay.
There's a group of muscles in there, but we'll just keep
Okay.
it
No worries.
general. And
And
yeah, it
the tro-
helps to know that you're actually strengthening the pelvic floor a little bit, which there's a lot of controversy around this exact topic in the yoga world, but
Mm,
I know that if we're just clenching the glutes and using the glutes to do the work, we're
that's
missing a key action here. And so we want both. But for me, the glutes get strong before. They're strong due to the shins forward and the muscles toning because of the actions of the feet. And they're not clenched. That is where I think the problem comes, is people over clench the buttocks.
I think you're right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Tiff, I have a question. Often when when you cue, like if you're in like warrior two and the front leg, you'll say wrap the buttocks under, and then you'll say take the back hip, the back leg hips back and wide. When you say wide, is it wide behind you or is it wide to the like far, that back part of your mat?
Good question. It's both, but back. So the femur bones have 3 key actions that we need to break down, and then eventually they kind of blend. But when the shins stay steady, so again, all this builds, right? It all builds. When the shins stay steady, we can learn to turn, and the feet stay steady, we can learn to turn the femur bones inward a little bit. And that's going to create more tension from big toe to inner heel.
Mm-hmm.
Then when we move the thighs back, thighs go back. The last piece, and I didn't teach it at all today because it just gets complicated, is we learn how to move the femur bones apart, wide. And that is going to happen because of these muscles called abductors.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done drills in the practice where we've learned how. I'll have you put your hand to your outer greater trochanter, and I'll say press that femur bone wide. So that's what I'm talking about there, because it wants to, if we descend through the front knee, what wants to happen is this back leg wants to go with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We want to learn how to keep the shin to the midline and push the upper femur bone towards the pinky toe edge of the foot. And
That's
keep
so
that.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if we keep that action and then pull the front buttocks down, now we have another principle of alignment called organic energy that's going to split the difference between the 2 leg bones.
Mhm.
So we're not just front leg oriented. We stay steady in the back leg. And now we're opening a lot of the hip. So here's a good example of that. You can see in lunge, the back leg wants to see how the femur bone wants to go towards the
Mhm.
front leg. And if
Mhm.
I keep the thigh moving wide and then create a deep lunge, see how the femur bone's coming straight out of my hip socket
Mhm.
instead of going this way, which
Mhm.
puts a lot of stress on the hip flexor, the psoas, and the rectus femoris. And we want to learn how to keep that bone moving nice and wide. This is
And then
advanced.
do I think of it as like, I liked what you said today. I'd never heard before. It never registered anyway. The greater trochanter kind of lines up with your heel. Is
Correct.
that, and so that's kind of the back part on that plane. And then the wide part is more your abductors.
Yeah, it's interesting because your adductors, they start here and they actually come around and wrap more towards the medial or like the uh, middle of the femur bone on the
Mhm.
back. And so we can learn to with those, and then no muscle in your body runs in a straight line from origin to insertion. So we can learn how to follow the 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 twisting action of the adductor. When you squeeze that shin and the knee to the midline, it strengthens these muscles on the inner upper thigh. And then we can use that, pulling the femur bone back and then press against it. And so the adductors are actually in some, I'm sure an anatomist would argue with me all day long, but that we can use the inner thighs to help widen too. So because you're using from origin to insertion and following the way the muscle winds. And in this way, we unwind the hamstring by lining up the femur bone with the shin bone, hugging the shin in and pushing the femur bone out, creates just more uniform alignment from origin to insertion of all the muscles. Then
That's
we are also learning how to keep and use the abductor, which is a hard muscle group to learn how to use because they're really small
Mhm.
and they're very weak for most people.
that's so helpful. Thank you. That
Yeah.
kind of puts it all together. It's like so stable when kind of you're thinking about
Yeah.
all of it together.
Yeah. And we are going to go into more of that. And like I said, in the asymmetrical poses, we're going to do more of that our next 30-minute practice. Yeah. And so
Thank you.
we'll play with that.